Welcome to Creator Toolbox, a show brought to you by the ServiceNow Developer Program, where we demo all the new ServiceNow features for every developer's toolbox. I'm Kristy, Senior Developer Advocate, and today we have a couple of our esteemed PMs on the call, who I'm going to pass it over now to do introductions.
Thanks, Kristy. My name's Jason Lefever. I'm a Senior Manager on the Platform Workflow Automation product team.
Hello, hey everyone. This is Sai Mandava. I'm Senior Principal PM working in Platform Workflow Automation. I'm one of the PMs for Playbooks on platform side.
All right, so today we're going to talk about a brand new feature that's coming to Yokohama for Playbook. So, Jason, Sai, stage is all yours to tell us all about it.
So before we jump in, we may be talking about some forward-looking features. So we're going to flash up the safe harbor notice. Just don't make any buying decisions based on what we discuss here. Most of what we're going to talk about is already available for anyone to make use of now, but we do have some additional innovations we're planning for this Playbook Variants feature. So let's move right along. Before we jump into the specifics of Playbook Variants, let me kind of paint the picture of workflow automation on ServiceNow's platform. So our vision is to really empower anyone to automate work and unlock their productivity potential. So we have a number of capabilities that are spanning the spectrum of pro code all the way to no code. And if you move to the next slide, we have a summary of those capabilities. So we are representing the Playbook experience and the Playbook authoring side of this workflow automation umbrella, but we also have flows, subflows, flow actions, decision management, approvals, and we own our legacy workflow capabilities. So all of these things allow you to build end-to-end workflow on the ServiceNow platform. To talk a little bit more about Playbooks, the capability that's near and dear to our hearts. So Playbooks is a way to build business processes. So if you think about processes that are multi-step, maybe cross-functional across multiple departments, maybe interacting between an organization's agents and fulfillers, and also collaborating with end users, requesters, customers, Playbooks allows you to build the stages and activities or process steps that achieve an outcome. And we offer a no-code experience for doing so. In Runtime, we have what's called Playbook Experience. This is how we visualize and allow users to interact with a process by guiding them step by step through the sequence that's required to achieve whatever outcome is desired. So think of case management. So if I'm resolving cases that customers are raising, if I am doing incident resolution, if I'm fulfilling requests, or even operations like onboarding clients, offboarding clients, qualifying suppliers, really any type of business process where you need to build it into your application, Playbooks is the way to do that.
So we'll jump into Playbook Variants and we'll talk about what it is and the features that it has. But before going in, I think Jason has been in the team for much longer than me. Jason, can you give a couple of examples or situations in which our customers needed this feature and the reason why we've built it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we think variance is a differentiator for us with the realities of building and managing complex processes today. The way that it's done is either organizations will have multiple processes that are very similar but nuanced for specific scenarios. An example could be that I have a process that's based on geography. So if I'm in the North America region, I have specific steps that are relevant to this region of the world. I might be in EMEA and the process is similar but has its own nuances. So customers have built multiple processes, and so there's overhead associated with managing multiple processes that are very similar. And the other way to do it today is you build the entire process as one entity, but you have to build and configure all kinds of run conditions. So every process stage, every activity may have to have a run condition so that it accounts for the nuances of a given scenario. So a couple of customer use cases that we've been made aware of that really would do well being taking advantage of variants. We have an aerospace customer who does a lot of supplier qualifications. So anytime they have a new part or a new material that needs to be used for their manufacturing, they have to qualify their suppliers to be able to supply those materials. And so what we learned is that a lot of the process is common when we're talking about defining the scope of the qualification and defining and agreeing on the documents that outline the overall plan. But where there are nuances is in the actual part where we're conducting the qualification. We're going on site to the supplier's manufacturing facilities. We're doing test runs of the parts or materials that are being produced. And then once the testing and qualification piece is done, again, we go back to a common process where we are producing reports and then either qualifying the supplier or not. So in this scenario, the variants could be built to account for different types of execution phases of the qualification. Another example is in financial services, where we may be onboarding clients. And so, as part of our process, we need to account for nuances when customers are perhaps of different segments or are consuming different services. So, variants will allow you to define a base process and then layer on top of that any nuances that need to be accounted for when you're actually running the process.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jason. Thanks for setting the context and giving high level examples or the reasons why we created this feature. So, uh, as Jason mentioned, playbooks variants, it eliminates the need to create a duplicate playbook just to cover minor process deviations. And this is something that we just released in Q4 November store release. And it helps you create a parent playbook first to capture all the stages and activities that are common to all the variants, and then let you create child variants for similar but slightly different activity setups. As of the latest store release, variant conditions will let you re-evaluate when the playbook restarts, allowing a different variant to launch whenever the conditions meet. And variants are a huge time saver for process owners whenever they're developing playbooks for scenarios where processes deviate slightly based on various conditions like request location or asset category or task priority. It also eliminates the need for creating multiple playbooks just by creating a parent playbook and then creating all the child variants within it. I'll go to the next slide and go a little deeper into the features and how it can be set up. The first step in creating a variant is to name it and then set up the conditions during which that particular variant should run. If there are multiple variants, then the process owner or the author of playbook, they should decide the order and the hierarchy of the variant execution. And once the variant is created, they can go ahead and do the required modifications in a variant. And the users are allowed to do three modifications in every variant. First is they can add any activities into it, but they cannot delete or edit one of the activities which is already there in the parent playbook. And the second one is they can also modify start rule. They can decide when a particular activity can start in the process, even if it's from the parent process. And the third one is they can also modify the display order in which that particular activity shows up in runtime execution. And while all of this is on the authoring side, on the runtime experience side, where the end user, who is an agent or end customer consumer, whenever they executes this playbook, for them, we don't show which variant is running. Automatically, it decides based on the run conditions which variant it has to run, and it'll be a seamless experience on the runtime experience side. From here, we'll jump onto the demo. I'll quickly share my other screen.
My creative workflows SC side, who built a lot of demos using playbooks is very excited about this. I mean, I'm excited about it as a developer advocate, but holy cow, all this stuff that we're adding with the ability to be much more dynamic, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
cool. Yeah.
Okay, so jumping into the demo, this is a recruitment process, and this is what we consider as a base process, which can be leveraged and used and be customized for specific scenarios. And this is a process with 5 stages and a bunch of activities. And in this particular process, a trigger is also set up, and it's set up on hiring recruitment table. I specifically mentioned this because you need an entire process to be set up along with the trigger to set up variants. And once you're all ready, then you can come here and click on this icon called Playbook Variants. Since we don't have any variant setup currently, this is just the base process that we see. We can see the screen where it asks you to create a variant or add a variant to start. So on this process, I want to set up 2 variants. Let's do that. First, I want to set up one variant for individual contributor, and later I also want to set up one variant for manager. So let me name this as individual contributor. And I also need to set up the conditions on which this particular variant will be selected. So here I'm looking at the fields, and I have this field called is manager. I'll select this as false. So all of these conditions, they basically come from the trigger record. And once I hit create variant, it creates it. Now we see that there is this variant called base variant. That's the parent one. And the one that we created called individual contributor variant, that is set up. And we also see that this entire process is grayed out and activities are also grayed out. All that means is that whatever process you have on the base, that's copied over, and very minimal changes can be done on it. Sorry.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
You had the filters on those variants. Is there anything that like stops people from creating 2 variants with the same filter?
They can do it, but whatever is picked first, I think in terms of hierarchy, that'll be
Got
run
it.
and that'll be selected.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's
Good
where
question.
order is important in the content tree. If you happen to create 2 variants that have the exact same conditions, the one
Mhm.
that is first in the tree, the engine will find the
Pick
first
that one.
variant that matches and runs it.
Got it. Well, where do you set the order? Was there an order field there that I didn't see?
It's just the order.
Oh,
in
that
here.
way.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So we have created one variant which is individual contributor. Let me create another variant which is manager. And I'll just set this flag as true and I'll create it. Now inside this variant, you can also create one more child variant. So that just creates a hierarchy of it. So let me add one more child variant. And I would do this for someone who is IC4 and above. So that's basically, I'm specifying a seniority level based on which I want to add more activities. So here I would select this field on trigger record, which is job level. And I would say IC4 and plus. So I'll say is one off, IC4, IC5, and IC6. And I'll just create the variant. So now you see that there are 2 levels within this particular variant, and we also have a sister variant for this individual contributor variant. Now let's go inside each of these. Now we have created variants. We just have to modify the process by adding one of the activities or changing the start rules or modifying the way the order in which the activities show up. So for this particular individual contributor variant, I want within the technical panel, I want to add one more activity, which is coding round, because for an individual contributor, coding skills are quite important. So let me add that here. I'll go ahead and add an activity, and I'll select instruction as an activity. So now you see that this activity is created within this variant, and we also see that the color is modified only for this. And this color basically matches with the color that we have here. Basically, the outline of this activity, right? That matches with the variant color so that you can easily identify that activity is created within this particular variant. And here for this variant, you also see that although this activity has gray color, but the outline is turned into this color, which matches with the variant color. Basically, what it means is that one of the rules have been overridden, and they're overridden within this particular activity. Sorry, within this particular variant.
Yeah. So this particular activity in the base process starts after the first activity of the technical panel. But since we've inserted a coding round activity, we have to modify the underlying start rules so that this third step now starts after the second step of the stage, accounting for the individual contributor variant of the process.
I see. I was going to ask you what the colors were for, but good to know. I see. Okay.
Yep, just some visual cues that while I am layering variant-specific content on top of my base playbook, I am either doing something that is intentional. I'm adding an activity to this. It's a new step within this variant, or kind of the indirect impact of doing that is I'm modifying start rules for the existing activities within the base playbook.
Got it. Very cool. Okay.
Awesome. And let me go to another variant underneath this. So now I have this child variant underneath the individual contributor variant. Now you see that I've added coding round specifically within IC variant, but that's carried over to its child, and we can see that here. And now let's say within this particular variant, I want to add one more activity, and this is for somebody who is senior. So I would say I want to add one more instruction activity, but in this we want to test something about their architecture skills. I would just save and close this, and we're all set. So another activity is created within this particular grandchild variant to the base variant. And let me go to the manager variant. And here you see that whatever is there in the base process, only that is carried over because it inherits all the activities and properties within that particular variant. And anything that you change in IC variant or IC4 doesn't come over here. And within this, since it's manager variant, I want to add one more step within manager panels. And I want to say, I want to create one more activity, and I want to add this as a VP round so that the process is more stringent. So we've seen adding activities primarily. Let me do this change where I want to do this cultural fitment evaluation here for manager. And I want to override this particular display activity property. And I want to say this as 1. Now we see that the order has changed, and we also see that the color around this particular activity has changed to cayenne, and that matches with the manager variant. So these are the 3 changes that we can do within any variant. Once you create it, you can add an activity, you can modify the start rule, and you can also modify the display order of each of the activities.
And I assume, sorry. And I assume the resync was so that you could set it back to the default from the base variant, I assume? Okay. I just saw that pop up in there. And if I wanted to add another stage, I'm assuming you can do that as well, or no?
So in our MVP, it's not in stages are only configured at the base playbook level. We will continue to evolve this feature over time. And so we wanted to get some initial soak time with our customer base, get some feedback before we determine how deep we have to go.
Sure. Makes sense. Okay.
And another call out for the content tree is that you can currently go 6 layers deep from the base. So if I wanted to have 6 generations from base all the way into the individual contributor layer, I could do that. So if I've got something like a deep sales territory, I go from my region all the way down to a zip code. I can have up to 6 layers from that base process.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Awesome. So that's about it for demo. And in terms of what's coming next, this is something that we've released already in Q4, and we are actively investing in this feature. And we are working on another exciting feature where currently in the variant feature that we have released, all the variants are evaluated at the start of the process. For example, in the runtime experience, whenever the trigger gets run and the playbook gets triggered, at that time we decide which variant to be run, and that's evaluated and it gets executed. But we've heard from customers, and the feedback that we got is that they want to decide that a little bit later. For example, I want to wait till here, and probably I want to take some of the data that's already available in these two activities and then run the evaluation. So we are going to set up that evaluation point as well. That's something that we are working on, and hopefully it'll be available to our customers soon.
Yeah. One other thing to call out that we did in our Yokohama release. So the initial MVP of variants is supported on Xanadu with our Store 2, which released in November 2024. In Yokohama, we made a change to how our engine evaluates a variant. And so let's say in this recruitment process, we start by interviewing a candidate as an IC5. But then as business needs change, we identify a need to hire a manager. And so we think this IC candidate is actually a great candidate as a manager. We could change their recruitment record and say that this is a manager candidate and then restart the playbook. And it is possible to configure which stages and which activities are restartable within a playbook. So let's say for this process, when we decide we're going to change the title from an IC title to a manager title for a candidate, we may not need to have the recruiter do the screening again, but we want to send this candidate back to the manager for review. So we could change the recruitment record, restart the playbook, and then we would start in the second stage of the process. And the manager reviews them as a manager candidate. And then we would go into the interview panels. And instead of a coding round again and an architectural discussion, we now send that candidate to the VP for the manager variant of the process. So that's possible today. You can restart. But again, to Sai's point, we've heard from customers that we may not always know which variant should run when a record is created and when the playbook is initially kicked off. So we would like to collect some information up front so that we can discover what type of variant should be run and then defer the evaluation point to a later point in the process. So that's something that we're working on. And then another thing that we're also intending to do is for any activities that are in the base playbook, we have this concept that allows you to build a derivative of that activity inside a variant. So a use case would be if I have, let's say I've got a process that needs to undergo a risk audit. And so I need to be compliant with regulations. In my base playbook, I may have a generic step that has a form for like a global risk checklist. But then as I layer on top of that variants, I may have a North America variant, an EMEA variant, an APJ variant, and each of these regions has their own specific compliance requirements. The concept of a derivative is I would not have to add a new and unique activity to each variant, but rather I could go into that existing risk checklist activity and override the form. And so instead of a global form in North America, I could present the North American risk audit checklist and so on and so forth. So that's the concept of derivatives. And Kristy, to your question earlier, supporting things like stage configuration, adding new stages within a variant. And then the other thing we're considering are like permissions and who can modify which variants. So it might be possible that you've got multiple process owners in this kind of landscape. And should we allow different people different permissions so that I can only modify the North America variant and Sai modifies the APJ variant. So lots of cool things that we're thinking about in this space. And so we'll continue to listen to our customers, hear what their requirements are, hear about their opportunities and great ideas, and we'll continue to evolve the product from there.
Yeah, I love that. I find that playbooks are highly underutilized in a lot of cases. And I think part of that, if I think back again to my SC times, I got questions a lot of times from customers because I didn't really understand when they should use a playbook versus when they should use a flow. Can you speak to that just a little bit? Because I always like to ask when I'm on a call with especially somebody who focuses on playbooks. But
yeah, absolutely. So flows, we recommend flows to be used for purpose-built reusable automation. And another distinction with playbooks is it's going to be, in most cases, highly user interactive. So each playbook activity is powered by a subflow or a flow action. So we are making use of flows, but each activity is a wrapper for the underlying automation and the user experience that presents to the user at this step of the process in runtime. So if I'm presenting a form or a list or an image or a video, whatever I'm designing as my activity UI in UI Builder is powered by the underlying subflow or flow action. So that's kind of the distinction. We've got highly user interactive processes. We may have things that are multi-step, cross-departmental, on the complex side. Those are playbooks, and purpose-built reusable automations are where we recommend using flows. Another consideration is, let's say I did build the same business process as a playbook and as a flow. When I have to make a change to the process, in a playbook, I can just focus on the specific activities that need to change. Whereas if I'm in a flow, I have to unpack all of the logic that's built into that flow and make sense of it and then modify it. So there is a bit of a maintenance advantage when we're looking at sequenced reusable pieces of a business process and only focusing on the areas that need to change versus having to unpack a complex flow that represents the same business process.
Got it. Makes total sense. One question about playbook variants. We show the building of playbook variants and that sort of thing. Do variants change the way that's displayed on the front end for users, like the people that are actually running through the playbooks on the front end? Does it look any different to them, or is it largely the same?
No, it's mostly the same. The only difference is if you add another activity or if you change the display order or something like that, only those changes will be applied. But for the agent or customer consumer who is running that playbook, they'll not know which variant they're running. It just looks like the same playbook.
Cool. So it's completely seamless. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. The goal is dynamic work management. And so I, as the agent, am presented with the work that I need to complete at each step of the way. I don't necessarily have to understand all the nuances of the process.
Got it. Okay. Well, this was all great information. I know there's a lot of developers that are going to watch this episode. If they wanted to use this and wanted to start playing with this, how would they get started doing that? Is there a certain version of a PDI they need to be on, or a certain version of their instance they need to be able to see this in action?
Yep, absolutely. So again, we released this in November 2024. So if you are already on Xanadu, you would just need to install the version 26.2 store app for Workflow Studio. And Workflow Studio gets you all of the latest and greatest for that release version for flows, decisions, playbooks, etc. If you're on Yokohama, you would need to install our 27.1 version of Workflow Studio. And that would get you the latest and greatest with our restart and reevaluation of variants.
Got it. Okay. And are there any, my last question, are there any training resources or good videos out there? I know you guys do some academy sort of things. Have you guys done any of that or planning any of that for resources?
Yes, absolutely. So I did, I think we called it Getting Started with Playbooks in 2024. This came out in November last year. Lisa and I did a workflow academy on variants. So we actually did a recording. We walked through, a demo. And the other great thing is for anybody that's going to be joining us at Knowledge this year, I'm going to be co-speaking on a CreatorCon lab that will walk through variants. And so we will allow people to get some hands-on experience with configuring variants and checking out how it all works.
Awesome. Love that plug for Knowledge in your session. That was great, Jason. All right. Well, that's all we have for this episode of Creator Toolbox. We have so many more episodes coming and already out there, so be sure to check our channel. Thanks, everybody.